I forced my daughter to listen to specific podcasts on the subject while driving her to school. I printed out stories about female detransitioners and left them throughout the house. My God, you brainwashed your kid. You unironically brainwashed your child. What? Alrighty, so this next one was an article that I got sent, and I did not want to cover at first, because reading it kind of made me see red. I say kind of, but it really did do that. So before we get into that, though, let's go ahead and get that one little bit of dopamine before we continue. Fan art section, we have a fan art of Raz's old avatar done by Unseen. Said Phil kind of met on this one, used a storyboard panel to explain the pose. So apparently it is Raz with the daggers blocking me with a hammer. And then the next one we have is from Lunar Muse Serenity, and it is another one of Lunar Muse's outfits. I said, ta-da! And, yeah. And Lunar Muse, since you are in the chat, if you want to explain how you came to making this particular outfit. It's very reminiscent of the regular outfit, but with a little more jewelry accents. Also, John Phelan, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an owl. Owl. As always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in future videos, drop it into the fan art section of the Discord channel, and they will be shown in used to be chronological order. Now that Cherry is the editor, they just get shown whenever Cherry decides that certain episodes need to go up. That is how that happens. As always, let's go ahead and get into the topic. And just the title of this alone will explain everything. So I'm just gonna zoom in on this, and I'm just gonna let you read that title and let it soak in for a sec. Because holy shit. When you write a title like that, I know that I'm about to read some bullshit. What's with the picture? I don't know. It's from iStock. They couldn't hire a photographer to do anything. Apparently paying artists is bad for them. They'd rather just use stock photos. So, let's go ahead and read. So, this is written by a dude called Charlie Jacobs. We might have a Twitter to look at afterwards. Who knows? But it reads, "My daughter's story is no longer novel. Stories like it are occurring in your state, your town, and perhaps even on your street. Gender dysphoria, the incongruence between mind and body, moves stealthily and quickly to invade girls and boys alike. But this isn't a cautionary tale, it's a warning." Okay, you need to hire an editor. Charlie Jacobs, you need to hire an editor. A cautionary tale is by its very nature a warning. You need to hire somebody to go over this and just fix some of this shit. We're getting some biblical gender roles article vibes here. Continue on. "My daughter was an ultra-feminine girl since birth. She insisted that her room be painted pink, and she refused to wear anything but dresses until 3rd grade. She avoided her older brother's toys and sports, choosing tea sets and Shopkins, a series of tiny collectible toys. Her favorite activity was to slip into my closet and don my few sparkly clothes and shiniest heels. She rejected sports in favor of art and sewing. But that all abruptly changed when she turned 12. Ooh. As her body matured into young womanhood, she stopped begging for a bikini and avoided any clothing that accentuated her figure. She hid her breasts under men's extra-large sweatshirts. I remembered doing similar things as my body changed, so I didn't worry at first." So, can I just say, the writing already has me a little worried. Any parent that can go into detail about the hiding of breasts of their 12-year-old child, it feels weird to me. I'm not saying that it is, but it feels weird. But let's continue. "Then, my daughter immersed herself into anime art and cosplaying, the hobby of dressing like fantastical characters. I supported her creative side. I didn't know that anime and cosplaying can overwhelm a young mind. I didn't know that anime and cosplaying involved gender-bending themes, and that the community crossed into pedophilic and sexual themes." Hey, let's rewind a bit. Your daughter immersing yourself. You keep saying this is about trans people. So I'm just gonna say your child, because it sounds to me like your child might not be your daughter. I need to get to the end of the article. But yeah, this is some boomer shit. Your child immersed themselves into anime art and cosplaying. Gee, I wonder how that is like. So you as a parent apparently didn't know that anime had gender bending in it. Might I introduce you to that time I got reincarnated as a slime? Can you tell me what Rimuru is? Because every answer is probably wrong. Anime did not make your child trans. At most, anime may offer an avenue for your child to explore their gender or sexuality. It may allow them to explore, but here's the thing. They would have done that anyway. They would have done that at 30. They would have done it at 40. They would have done it at any point. They just had the opportunity earlier. And for a lot of people, that can make all the difference. And difference in a good way, not in a bad way. But we do have to talk about this, because this one is actually true. This one is actually true. Sexual themes, fine. All media can have sexual themes. All media can have sexual themes. This does not matter. This, however, this is a thing that anime does fall into sometimes, and yeah, it is gross. When you get the over-sexualized lolly character who is coded as a child, that's gross. I'm sorry. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. That stuff needs to stay, like, tucked away in some dojin on a shelf and not in mainstream anime. 1 point for the article. I do agree that is an issue, and is an issue we have in anime, and the excuse given is generally, oh no, they're a 700-year-old dragon or some shit. But continuing on, she says, I didn't know that the older cosplay community groomed the younger cohorts. No, okay, so here's the thing. All communities that get sufficiently large end up having groomers. It's bad, but it's the end result of having a community grow sufficiently large. It is not a feature of the cosplay community to groom children. And in fact, if you go to any convention and anybody even gets a whiff that you are doing this, you will get kicked the fuck out. But continuing on, during that same time period, my daughters went through Teen Talk, a Manitoba. I don't know what that is. A Manitoba, Canada-based program that says it provides youth with accurate, non-judgmental information on sexuality, reproductive health, body image, substance use awareness, mental health, issues of diversity, and anti-violence issues at her public school. She came home with a whole new language. She and all her girlfriends discussed their labels. Polyamorous, lesbian, pansexual. None of the 5 girls chose basic, their term for a straight girl. Now I was worried. All right, so here's the thing. First, you would need to tell me what is the issue with being pansexual, lesbian, or polyamorous. At most, you could maybe come up with some arguments against polyamory. And I say this as a polyamorous person. If I were to identify some issues that you run into in polyamory, I can name a couple. Unicorn hunters are a huge issue in polyamorous communities, and they are routinely frowned on in polyamorous communities, but they no less exist in them. Another one you can find, hierarchical systems, where you have people who are in poly relationships, and you have a hierarchy where partners get put lower and lower on the totem pole in terms of being able to make decisions. That shit happens in polyamorous relationships, but that shit also happens in monogamous relationships. It can be exacerbated in poly ones, though. So, I mean, at most, you might be able to find some issues with polyamory, because polyamorous people can tell you those issues exist in them. Lesbian and what issues are you going to have with this? If your child chooses to love somebody, who the fuck cares? And if none of them are straight, cool. Again, who cares? What is so important about being straight? You can't even make the argument about breeding. You can't just be like, my daughter's not submissive and breedable. It doesn't matter. One, they're a child. Two, when they're an adult, they have things like in vitro and surrogacy and all kinds of ways that they can go about life without ever having to divert from being a lesbian. It doesn't matter.
She distanced herself from her old friends and spent more time online. I checked her phone, but was not astute enough to know that she had set up appropriate fake social media accounts for my viewing.
Are they fake, though? Maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just being part of the VTuber community, but a lot of VTubers have SFW accounts and NSFW accounts. Neither account is fake. They're both very real. It's just one might have porn and the other one doesn't. But okay.
An older girl showed romantic interest in them. I barred that girl from our home. I learned later that she had molested my daughter.
Okay, so here's the thing. It is bad. If what you're saying is true, it is bad that the older girl molested your daughter. That is horrible, and I do not wish that on anybody. But the way this sentence is structured, it's almost to make it feel like she molested your daughter because she was homosexual. You barred her from your home because she was homosexual. That's the thing that you were angry about. It was only circumstantial that you barred a potential predator from your home. The sentence is structured in such a way to make you feel like homosexual people are predators, and that's a fucking problem.
My daughter became unrecognizable. When my daughter was in 8th grade, as a Christmas gift, I took her to SAC Anime, an anime convention in Sacramento, California. There, she met a girl 3 years her senior, but light years more mature. That girl mesmerized my daughter with her edginess and magnanimous.
Magnanimous. Why can't I pronounce that?
Cool personality.
There we go. We'll go with that one.
Older girl went by they, and after their meeting, my daughter got a boy's haircut, stopped shaving, and asked for boys' underwear. My daughter parroted everything about the older teen. She started making gross TikTok videos, her language became vulgar, and she redecorated her room to look like a cave. She self-pierced her nose with those bull rings. She broke every family rule. She was morphing into an emo goth, vampire-like creature. She was unrecognizable. Her personality descended into anger and rudeness. The summer before 9th grade, she announced that she was transgender. Post-announcement, she began to threaten suicide. She sunk into deep depression.
All right, so here's the thing. Your child was a freshman in high school. This is when their hormones, their thoughts, everything is fucking changing, and they just got into a new school. For those who are watching who are outside of the United States, usually the 9th grade is when we start high school. You've just left middle school, which is where 8th grade ends. This is when your environment changes. Your hormones are already changing. Your environment is now changing. Everything around you is confusing. And it is so hard to fathom what the fuck is going on in your own life. I am sorry that your child began to threaten suicide. I am sorry that your child sunk into a deep depression. That deep depression was likely not because they were trans. Typically, based on the language of this article, I would assume that you tried with your child to stamp out whether or not they were homosexual, to stamp out whether or not they were trans. You tried to stamp that out, potentially. But this person more than likely retaliated on their child in some way for them being, not heteronormative.
I managed to get all of her passwords to all of her social media accounts. What I saw was jaw-dropping. Almost everyone she was conversing with was a stranger, except for the SAC anime friend, who sent her a self-made masturbation video. The discussions on the Discord platform online involved fetishistic sexual conversations. Kids were sending each other erotica, often involving incest and pedophilia.
Okay, so are you just talking about dojins? Because again, I already touched on that's an issue in that medium. That's an issue in that medium. Your child was an anime fan, and so they got into anime circles. When I was a kid, a lot of the anime fans that I was friends with, if they were girls, they tended to show each other yaoi like all the time. It doesn't make it good, but the That said, I do want to address the self-made masturbation video thing. On the one hand, this was a breach of your child's privacy. On the other hand, though, I do have to point out that with something like that, you are talking about somebody who has a huge power dynamic imbalance with with your child. So not great. But also, yes, this was literally just a massive invasion of your child's privacy. But continuing on,
older girls were instructing younger girls on how to sell nude photos of themselves to men for money. Girls bragged about their different mental illnesses. They talked about which drugs do what. They talked about how they are really boys, not girls. They discussed top surgery, having their breast removed, and packers, creating a bulge in one's pants to imply the presence of a penis. My daughter's electronics devices were filled with TikTok videos and YouTubers talking about how great they feel when they had transitioned. There were messages in which strangers told her to kick my head in because I was a transphobe for refusing to call her a male name.
All right, this is a thing that I do want to address. I'm just going to go call it what it is. On TikTok, there is a bit of an issue of glamorizing mental illnesses. I do have an issue with it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I feel like it sends a really awkward message. Now, I do believe in the normalization of mental illnesses. I've got depression. I have anxiety. I have lost a career due to them in the past. I wrestle with them today. I have been on drugs for them before. I have been to therapy. I believe we should normalize these things. What I don't believe is that we should fetishize them. And on TikTok, there are spaces that do kind of fetishize mental illnesses a little bit. And it's not comfortable. So what's happening is this person has found some extremes. Now, granted, we need to go here to the part where they say people should say commit violence on your parent because you were being a transphobe. Okay, so you refused to call your son a male name. Got it. So now we know that your son is trans. They wanted to be called a male name. I'm comfortable just calling them your son instead of your child. Cool. We're at that point of the article. Older people told you, or told your child, told your son, that they were more comfortable after they transitioned. If your child had gender dysphoria, they might be more comfortable after transition. Or if they experience gender euphoria by engaging in dressing with clothes that are more akin to the opposite gender, if they happen to prefer having a different name or a different haircut, if these things give them euphoria, but they feel a net zero generally, then again, that's fine. There's nothing harmful here. Like, I have to ask people in general, outside of the idea of, oh my God, I lost my daughter, what have you actually lost? What have you actually lost? You never lost your child. If anything, if you lose your child, it's because you pushed them away. You pushed them away from that. You have to ask yourself, if you lose your daughter, is it not better to accept that you could gain a son? If you lose your daughter but gain a son, what have you really lost if the person on the inside is the same? Isn't having your child what should be important to parents? You would think. But apparently trans people are scary. Apparently. I don't... Okay, let me put it this way. I don't get it now. But there was a time in my life where I used to be a violent transphobe. Not violent in that I would commit violence, but I would argue vehemently against people who were transgender. That was me in high school. That was me freaking 6-7 years ago. That was me. So I know where they're coming from, but I also just don't get it. Because I couldn't justify it when I was confronted on it then. I relied on what I thought was my intuition. I intuitively knew that boys were boys and girls were girls. That was the extent of what I had. I didn't do any actual research into the science or anything like that to get to the point where I realized, oh shit, I'm actually wrong. Apparently also, we do need to address this last part. I said I would do it earlier, I'll do it now. Okay. This is an extremist problem. You should not commit violence on a family member for misgendering you. I'm of the opinion that you should... when it comes to conflict theory, when it comes to shit like this, you should maintain whatever level of escalation you're at. If they are doing things like calling you a female name when you would rather go by a male name, then you just don't respond to the female name. You just don't. No matter how many times they say it, you just don't respond. Because you're not that person. They think you're that person, but you're not. Responding with violence, that's not going to help. That's not going to solve this problem. It's in fact just going to create more problems for you. Now, if your parent gets violent with you, at that point they've escalated, then you can engage in self-defense. If you are trying to help a friend of yours who is trans and is in an awkward situation with their parent, don't tell them to fucking assault their parents. That is not going to help them. It is just going to make their lives worse. The best advice you can give to a child, and this is taken from Telltale, the best advice you can give to a child who is living under the roof of a bigot who would otherwise harm you is to tell them, look, determine if it is safe for you to be out. If you can be sassy with your parents, if you can do things like ignore them when they don't tell you, when they don't call you the right name, if you can do things like that, then do that. But if it is an unsafe environment for you, if it is an unsafe environment for them, the first thing is see if you can help them leave. If you can't, if they are stuck in that environment, then you need to tell them about just staying in the closet. It sucks. It is harmful. It is absolutely horrible to do that, but their safety is your number one priority. You can come out when you are safe, but do not do things that would endanger yourself. This includes trying to start a fucking fight. Do not get yourself hurt. Continuing on the article,
I went nuclear. I took the phone and stripped it of all social media. YouTube, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, Pinterest, Twitter. I even blocked her ability to get on the internet. I deleted all of her contacts. I changed her phone number. I sat next to her while she attended school online via Zoom. I deleted YouTube from the smart TVs and locked up the remotes. I took every anime book from her room. I threw away all of her costumes. I banned any friend who was even the slightest bit unsavory.
Now remember, to this person, unsavory just means gay. Gay, or if they cuss. That is their definition of unsavory. A functionally useless, tepid version of that. This is abuse. This right here, this is the type of stuff that makes you an unfit parent.
I involved the police about the porn. I printed out the law and informed her that if anyone sent her porn, I would not hesitate to prosecute. She hated me like an addict hates the person preventing her drug fix. I held my ground despite the constant verbal abuse.
My dude, the verbal abuse was happening from you to them. Maybe check yourself.
After going through 7 mental health professionals, I found an out-of-state psychiatrist who was willing to examine the causality for my daughter's sudden trans identity. I immersed myself in reading everything on the issue, talked to other parents and other professionals. I worked unceasingly to create the bond that we used to share.
Wait, so you had 7 mental health professionals tell you you were fucking wrong? And then you went out of state so that you could engage in confirmation bias, so that you could finally find the one mental health, quote, professional that was willing to tell you that, no, it's okay, Karen. It's okay. It's okay to be a violent, homophobic, transphobic piece of shit. It's okay. If 7 therapists are saying you're wrong, that's the red flag for you that you're wrong. Continues on to say,
after a year and a half,
Winchanter, thank you for the 60 bits.
After a year and a half of utter hell, my daughter is finally returning to their authentic self, a beautiful, artsy, kind, and loving daughter. I am not sure what the actual ingredients for the magic potion were for alleviating gender dysphoria in my child. The formula will vary, but what I did was, after a very brief misstep of using a male name, our family and all the adults in my child's life only use her birth name and corresponding pronouns. We did not permit social transition, although we could not control the school setting. Unbelievably, our local Catholic high school refused to allow our edict. As I mentioned previously, we pulled the plug on all social media and her access to anyone other than those persons were vetted. I forced my daughter to listen to specific podcasts on the subject while driving her to school. I printed out stories about female detransitioners and left them throughout the house. My God, you brainwashed your kid!
You unironically brainwashed your fucking child. What? Oh no, and here...
I left all of my research out in plain view, including Irreversible Damage, the transgender craze seducing our daughters by Abigail Shrier.
Oh no, you left that fucking book out? Everyone here should be familiar with that fucking book. We did a video on Abigail Shrier when she was doing shit for PragerU. Irreversible Damage is a ridiculously pseudoscientific book. It's literally fucking it's just conservative anti-trans propaganda. Sweet Cerebi in the chat says, my older sibling is non-binary and my parents refuse to call them by their chosen name. My parents are still confused about the fact that the older sibling has cut them off. In the end, all my parents' kids are going to end up cutting them off because of their non-ability to treat us with any respect or our identity. So I understand how this person's child feels. Yeah, fucking Jesus. Like, you're just brainwashing your kid. You know what I bet has happened? Here's what I bet has happened. My guess, my best bet, is that this person has gone and their child rather has gone back into the closet, and in about 6 to 10 years will come back out. They're gonna pop back out of their egg, and they're going to have another confrontation with their parent, and their parent is going to have to come to the realization that there was no magic potion that untransed your child. Even in the event that your child had a version of gender dysphoria that fades with age, because it does happen. It does happen. Even in the event that that happens, this shit that you are doing is still wrong. It is still abusive. It is still brainwashing, and it is still cult-like behavior. Even in the event that your child comes out of the other end of this this was still abuse. Oh, and this is a woman. This is a Charlie Jacobs is the pen name of a California wife and mother of 2 teenagers. Until recently, she worked part-time as a professional in a professional capacity, but is now dedicated to educating other parents on how gender ideology can overtake a child. Okay, cool. So you just became a full-time bigot. Got it. Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of mental scars going in. Magus Informaticus? Got it. Sounds like it's from Warhammer. Going stealth until they're self-supporting seems most likely. And again, that is literally, in many cases, that is the safest thing you can do. Remember, this person got isolated from everybody they know. Everyone they knew. And then they were dropped nothing but brainwashing information for the sole purpose of forcing them to not be trans, apparently. Again, even if your child comes out the other end cis, this was still brainwashing. This was still abuse. But it should be noted, I said this earlier, and I'll fucking say it again. If you're a parent who has a child who might be trans, the best thing you can do is support them. They'll figure it out on their own. Your child will figure it out on their own. And if you're worried about them regretting transitioning, it is more likely that they will not transition if they are cis than it is that they will. Detransitioning is very rare, and it is more likely you are causing damage than helping. If you might have a child who's trans, do not forsake your daughter because you are upset that you lost a son, or vice versa. Or, depending on the situation, you lost a daughter and gained an NB. You don't know. They do. It's in their head. You do not have the ability to mind read your child and know what they are going through. And you may end up cutting them off for good. This is how you create a very tense and terrible relationship between you and your kid. Are there comments here? No, they don't have comments here. Kira Sakura says the read of the opinion dribble is that the parent was probably being abusive towards the kid before the I went nuclear part. That would be my guess. I would assume that the parent was being a problem throughout the entire thing. With that said, I got to throw it back to you guys. If you are watching this on YouTube, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you're watching this on Twitch, I mean, the chat box is right there. Don't be a stranger. I'm here. Hello. But more importantly, let me know what you think. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the bell if you haven't already. Lady Necro, thank you for redeeming your points for an ara. You fucking monster. You absolute degenerate. And also, there are plenty of ways to support the channel in the About section, if you have not checked there already, and also in the description if you are over in YouTube land. As always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.